It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Talking Boxing with Billy C. show. Glad you could join us no matter what time you're watching or listening to this show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching. Hey, I hope you're having a good day. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just just go to Amazon.com or drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the website, BillyCBoxing.com. Check it out. And all of our stuff, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, like us, join us, follow us, subscribe, all that stuff. And most importantly, today's show is being brought to us in part by the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend. And yeah, I got inducted. I'm so excited about it. And I want you to join me, because if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be going in. I'm sure of it. I'm positive of it. So it's September 15th. It's at Russo's on the Bay in Howard Beach. And it's a great restaurant. They've got a great deal going on. It starts at noon, ends at 5:30. A lot of fans are coming. And Johan Guzman and a whole bunch of other people got inducted. For all the information, the best thing to do is visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the banner. It's to the right of the screen, and you can't miss it. Jeremy made a goofy looking picture of me, the infamous Jeremy C, and just click it and it'll take you right to where you have all the information. Reach out to Jack and get yourself a ticket, and I want to see you there. It's Sunday the 15th. It's fastly approaching. Give a shout out to my man Jesus, who never misses a show. He's in the chat room right now. If you're watching or listening to the show on whatever streaming device, we are on a couple of different platforms right now simultaneously. So come on over to the YouTube chat room or start one over in Rumble. We love that stuff. All right. First and foremost, Jesus says Crawford's doing what fake Canelo is doing, picking it and choosing. I don't know about that. Let's get right into it. I mean, that's my whole topic today is I want to talk about Terence Crawford. Look, he beat Israel Marjarimov in his last fight. I thought it was a great fight. And you guys know, if anybody's been watching or listening to the show for any length of time, they know that I was really high on having Crawford take on Canelo. I really thought that if anybody could do that, it would be TC, meaning move up in weight and take on Canelo. After watching the Crawford Marjarimov fight, the truth of the matter is I really think, and trust me, I am not discrediting Israel Marjarimov, because I said that fight was going to be more challenging than people were acting. Everybody I talked to thought it was going to be a quick knockout. All the so-called experts, it's not going to go 4. Oh, it's a win by knockout, blah, blah, blah. I saw this kid fight, and he's a beast. He could take a punch, and Crawford was moving up in weight. And I think it was evident in that fight that the size did make a difference. Terence Crawford was landing some shots, but not enough to hurt him. The other thing I noticed was that the constant movement that Israel was doing, the constant, moving his head, was really causing some trouble for Crawford. Now, I don't mean he didn't know what to do with it, but what I mean is, it kind of erased what he does best, where he sets up and can land some shots and so on and so forth. So I honestly think, in my opinion, I honestly think that TC should stay at. I think TC should stay at welterweight. Right now, he's actually a multi-division champion. The WBC has him as a champion in recess for the welterweight division. He is a WBA champ. He's the WBO interim champion. And I just think that maybe he should go back. And although I didn't think that, Boots was a viable fight for him, I've kind of shifted my thoughts, and I do believe that Boots and Crawford could generate some money, and I think it would be a good fight. Plus, Boots is a big welterweight. I want to thank my man Joel is in. He gave us a share on Triller's Twitter page, so I appreciate that. Hey, Zeus comment, Marajurimov and Crawford didn't risk as much. Who didn't risk as much? Crawford didn't risk as much? I don't know. I thought he did. I'm sorry. And I really did. But hey, if you're watching or listening to the show, come on over to the chat room and make your comments. I'll respond to them live. Now, Virgil Ortiz, a couple weeks ago, we had taken 2 weeks off. Virgil Ortiz, he won, and they were talking about against Boachuk, and they're talking about a potential showdown between Ortiz and Crawford. And again, after watching this fight, I said to myself, maybe I said to myself, Billy C, because when I talk to myself, and I said, Ortiz a big dude. He was relentless in his fight against Boachuk. Kept coming forward. He did go down. He was saying he didn't. He definitely did, and he went down once that they didn't call it. But again, I start thinking about Crawford because I think Terence Crawford is the number one pound per pound fighter in the world. And I just saying to myself, look, I know he wants to accomplish great things. Great fighters do great things. They challenge themselves. And Terence Crawford wants to do that. He wants his place in history. A lot of people are turning on Canelo Alvarez because he's following, Floyd Mayweather's route of cherry picking and taking the least dangerous fights. And Canelo's clearly doing that. His next fight against Berlanger is not going to be a competitive fight, in my opinion. Berlanger's in my opinion, he's not in a position to be challenging for that particular fight. And I believe that that's why Canelo picked him versus David Benavidez. Now, when you talk about Canelo and David Benavidez, I guess I'm the minority because I think that the David Benavidez fight isn't a good fight for Canelo. First of all, Benavidez has a lot of improving to do, in my opinion. He needs to improve a lot, but he's young, he's big, he's strong, and he's got the time to do it. If I'm with his team, I would definitely say to David Benavidez, hey, listen, why don't you hone your skills a little more and see what shakes out? It's almost similar to when Canelo fought Mayweather, and he might have gotten into that ring a little too soon. He obviously did, because Mayweather danced around and beat him in a fight. It's almost like Canelo could kind of do that to David Benavidez, although David Benavidez is so much bigger and stronger. should he land a shot. And let's face it, Canelo is there to be hit. That's why I liked the Terence Crawford Canelo Alvarez fight. I don't think that TC would stop Canelo by any stretch of the imagination. I really don't. But he could definitely win a decision. And that's a mega fight, a specialty fight. Um, it's the type of fight that, like I said earlier, great fighters do, and he's willing to do it. How many more fights does Terrence have? Probably not that many. And I think that's what he's looking for. I think his idea when he went and fought Marajirimov, that maybe that would shake and rattle the cage a little bit of Canelo, saying, "Hey, look, I moved up to this weight." But remember, that's junior middleweight. Canelo's fighting at super middleweight, so it'd be another two weight classes, and I really think that that Terence Crawford's ideal weight at this stage in his career is welterweight, and he could control that welterweight division. The one guy that they claim is a test for him happens to be Boots Ennis, and I think that that would be a decent fight. Although if you were watching this show 2 months ago, I was poo-pooing it, dismissing it. I think that Terence Crawford, in my opinion, doesn't need to prove anything anymore. He could ride off into the sunset right now and still have a place in the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 5 years or 3 years. Now that they do it in 3 years, but I think he's trying to prove and cement his legacy, and that's why he's trying to take that fight. And let's be real, boys and girls, the main reason he wants the Canelo fight is money. Terence Crawford never made the big money that he should have. And although I love what Top Rank is doing now, especially with their marriage, so to speak, with ESPN, he never fought as often as he should have, and didn't get the fights that he should have, and didn't make the money that he should have when he was with Top Rank. Now he's in a really good position to make some money if he makes the right fights. But Father Time is against Terence Crawford. We very well may have seen that being more of an indication of the Marajirimov fight. But I personally think it was the size and the style of Israel Marajirimov, and I believe that Terence Crawford should go back and review those tapes and consider trying to get a big money fight in Saudi Arabia with Boots. That's what I think. Now, with that said, the WBO has just ordered a Crawford Fundora fight. Now, Fundora's a freak. Okay, let's face it. Fundora's a freak. He's 9 feet tall, and he does have some pop. I was surprised Tim Zhu didn't beat him. The cut was horrendous. To this day, I believe that was a really bad decision by the ringside physicians not to stop that fight. I believe that fight should have been stopped. It was not only the blood wasn't only gushing like it was like it was literally Old Faithful. I never saw so much blood pouring down somebody's face in recent times, and was allowed to continue. It wasn't under or over his eye or on his eyelid, but it was right in his head, and heads bleed a lot, and it was clearly impairing his vision. They couldn't stop it. I don't know how much blood he lost during that fight, but I think that in a sense that was a really bad decision by the ringside physicians and that boxing commission to let that fight continue. But nonetheless, it did, and Fundora came out on top, which he won the fight. I mean, his jab was in Zoo's face all night long, and that was that. So now Fundora moves on. He ends up with the WBO and WBC. If you remember, the WBC's title was vacated, and the WBC put that title on the line. Now, all this rumor I heard that another one of a wasted fighter in Errol Spence Jr., which he could have made some money fighting Terence Crawford for the rematch, but obviously he knows he'll never beat Terence Crawford at any weight ever. And I believe Errol Spence was an overrated fighter at this point. You could also chalk up the automobile accident and all of the outside the ring activities that he does with the drinking and all of that, and then he had the eye damage. I think he's a done fighter. I think he's finished. And obviously the PBC, which is the second worst thing to ever happen in boxing. The first, of course, being Floyd Mayweather. I mean, they were the Hawk in the Fundora fight, but I never heard anything of it again. And now the WBO is ordering Terence Crawford against Fundora. Now, with me saying that I believe that Terence Crawford should stay in the welterweight division, if I play devil's advocate here and I say, okay, well, he only fought once as a junior middleweight, and it was against Israel Marajirimov. Maybe he needs this extra time to get used to that 154-pound body, so to speak. Even though they both weighed the same, Marajirimov looked so much bigger, thicker in that fight. But the Fundora fight would be an interesting fight against Terence Crawford, especially if the WBC decided to put their title on the line as well. So then you would have 3 belts on the line, assuming that the WBA lets TC put that belt on the line. So it would be the WBA, WBO, and the WBC belts all on the line. That would be an interesting fight. There'd be some value there, money-wise. I do think that people would want to see it, and it would be interesting to see how TC handles the Towering Inferno, because the kid is so tall. How do you get away from that jab? TC has got great footwork and hand speed, but I don't ever recall him fighting a substantially bigger fighter height-wise than himself. So just like he fought a bigger, stronger guy in Israel Majirimov, I'm killing that name. You know it. I know somewhere my man Randy Gordon is laughing his butt off because he loves to make fun of me not being able to pronounce names. I mean, just for kicks, he likes me to, he'll say, what's that guy's name? What's that guy's name? And he's referring to Jaime Munguia. I always, and I still do pronounce it incorrectly, Mugaya, but Randy. But in any event, I can't wait to see Randy in a couple of weeks when we go to the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. I can't wait to, to check out the meal and stuff, But anyway, I think that TC, Terence Crawford, and Fundora would be a decent matchup. It's going to a purse bid, so we'll see what happens on that one. As far as Majirimov, he said that he's looking for a rematch with Terence Crawford. I don't see that being too lucrative for Terence Crawford, especially in lieu of the performance and that fight, how tough it was. Shout out to Love It and my man Hawk Mustang. Glad you guys are in the chat room. I do think that maybe the IBF belt which is held by Bakram Murtazalov. Uh, uh, some of these guys, what happened to Smith and Jones and, Cooper and, Dempsey and easy names to pronounce, I've always had trouble with the names that basically have every letter of the alphabet, including X, Y, and Z in their name. And it's like, no, half those letters are silent. It's like, whatever, man. That's why I refer to myself as Billy C, because I can't even pronounce my own last name. But in any event, so that's what I think about Terence Crawford. I do believe he is the number one pound for pound fighter. So we'll see what happens there. Now there's a decent fight on this weekend. You know, I don't know. What's your thoughts? You could drop me an email and I'll talk about it next week. But what's your thoughts of Ortiz taking on that's Virgil Ortiz taking on Terence Crawford? I know His Excellency said that that's the fight he wants to see in Saudi Arabia. To tell you the truth, I think Ortiz might be a little too big and too aggressive for TC's style. And I say aggressive. TC is a great counterpuncher, and he can pivot, and his hand speed is unbelievable. But again, when you're talking about the size differential, and Virgil Ortiz is even bigger than Marajurimov, so I don't know if I'm Team Crawford. I know people can say, "Oh, he's ducking him," like my man in the chat room said. He's being like Canelo. I think it's a little different. Canelo. Listen, if Canelo was what he says he is, he would have. He couldn't wait. If Canelo was, a top guy like he thinks, an all-time great, then he couldn't have been waiting an extra second to get back in the ring with Bivol. And you don't hear that, you don't hear him mentioning Bivol's name. I know we got Bivol coming up in a great fight in the light heavyweight division, a unification fight. So I'm looking forward to that. But Bivol also showed us that Crawford, Canelo has trouble with pure boxers, and he had trouble with Floyd. If he's fighting a smaller guy, maybe he can overpower him. He does have a granite chin, Canelo. But I thought Crawford could steal a fight from Canelo. But when you start getting into these other fights with these bigger guys that have the arm reach over TC, I think it's I just think it's dangerous, But in any event, this weekend there's a couple of good fights on. There's actually one on DAZN. Diego Pacheco is taking on Masik Saluki in that fight in the super middleweight division, and Pacheco wants Mabili, which is a tough fighter out of Canada. He's an exciting fighter. Berlanga, who's fighting Canelo, and to me, that's a better matchup. Berlanga and Pacheco, I think that those two guys would have been a better matchup, and then potentially the winner taking on Canelo, only because they're kind of in the same spot of their careers as is Mabili, because that's why Canelo jumped on that Berlanga fight. Remember, a few months back, Berlanga was calling him out. Everybody wanted him to fight Berlanga, and he didn't. And now when he figures he's the easiest one, and I agree. I think he's definitely an easier fight than Mabili. Mabili's fight, he's tough. He's got some pop. He doesn't have much defense, but Canelo would have to get in close enough, and he would be susceptible to a hard shot. So, well, I'm going to watch that this weekend just to see. I'm looking for improvement. That's one of the things that fighters today you don't see often. You don't see the improvement because they're not fighting tougher opposition. They maintain a certain level of opposition so that they stay undefeated, and they don't get better. That's the problem with the sport. Look, His Excellency has been bringing us some great fights from wherever. He did one in the U.S. his last fight with TC, but for the most part, watching the fights overseas in Europe or Saudi Arabia, I prefer number one, the crowds are better. They're more into the sport, and they know the sport better than. I mean, look, I'm just calling a spade a spade. They know the sport better than the U.S. boxing fans, especially the young fans, not the old timers. The old timers, they know the sport, and they can. That's why they're critical. A lot of times, old guys like me are critical. But I will tell you something to get off topic here. Hawk saying he wasn't impressed with Mobility, but he fought a tough guy too, though, and he ended up winning. And it wasn't a blowout. And it's similar to Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz going into this fight, his last fight, he had theoretically only fought 2 rounds in like two and a half years. It was more than 2.5 years. So, but listen, anybody, and I know Joel and Hawk, these guys have been watching and listening to this show for a while, and you guys are going to be shocked at what I'm about to say. I've always said that the fighters of yesteryear were better and all this stuff, and I have been, kind of admitting that today's fighter, has the potential of being better because of the advances we've had in nutrition and training techniques, etc. But I tell you, I haven't been watching a bunch of clips of Joe Lewis's fights, and most people have Joe Lewis at the top, if not the top of their heavyweight all-time greats. And I was watching closely, and what I realized is this: the sweet science itself has evolved so much, right? And as much as it's not as exciting as it was back in the day. The technique now has added to the snoozing of the sport. And when I was watching the old Joe Lewis fights, what I did see is that the fighters maintained the talent. They have the talent. They saw the openings, they landed the punches. But what made it exciting, and the biggest reason that I saw, was that the fighters of yesteryear, and this carries all the way through the 80s. All right. So from the time that they were rough and tumble, bare knuckle brawlers that virtually had no skill compared to what we look at as boxing skill today, the one thing that they all shared was heart. They all had the heart that fighters of today do not have. I'm sorry, no superstar athlete has the heart that the previous generations had. They don't. Everybody's looking out for the protection, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I feel that they should be protected, but that comes with that is the lack of heart. The other main thing, there were only the two, was the fact that the fighters of yesteryear were willing to engage. Every fight that I watched of Joe Lewis, he engaged with his opponents, and his opponents engaged with him. Nobody was running. Nobody, even boxers. You look at the Billy Conn fight. He was a very talented boxer. He was a good boxer. He could box, but yet he would box, but he would still engage. This whole and earlier in the show, I know all the Floyd fans are going to jump all over me when I said he ruined boxing. Well, the reason is because his style is a hit and run. And don't email me and tell me that's a sweet science, hit and not get hit. Yeah, but the rest of that statement, like I've said for the last 21 years, is hit and not get hit, but be in position to inflict damage on your opponent. That's the definition. Vasily Lomachenko. I know my man, Augie, give a shout out to Augie and his son, who I will be seeing and meeting face to face at the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm actually really looking forward to that. he disagrees with me about Lomachenko. He doesn't think Vasily Lomachenko is as good as great as I think he is, but he is. And the reason why I say that is because he displays the actual true sweet definition of the sweet science. He's standing in front of you and you cannot hit him, but he's hitting you. Okay, by avoiding a punch and then dancing off where you're 5-10 feet away from your opponent, you can inflict damage on him. That is not the sweet science. That may be good strategy, that may be good defense, but it's not the sweet science. Lomachenko is the sweet science, the definition of sweet science. So that's what I am so critical. That's the main reason I'm critical of Floyd Mayweather, because he brags and says he's the best. He discredits all these great fighters of yesteryear, and his claim to fame is that he will nail you and basically bounce out of harm's way, but he's not hitting you again. He doesn't go toe to toe. At least, well, he used to before when he was Pretty Boy Floyd. He was an exciting fighter, but. So I'm looking forward to that. Then on September 3rd, Nanuet Inoue is taking on TJ Donaghy. All the featherweight titles are on the line. But the truth of the matter is I don't see that being competitive. But we'll see. We'll see about that. Hey, I was talking about the Billy fight. Where he took care of Deverenchenko, which I thought it was an entertaining fight. But the fight that I loved was my paisan Guido Vianello, who beat up the bully Arslan Makhmudov. Look, Makhmudov is a great example of built-up fighters with no talent, and a great example of beat the shit out of the bully and he's not going to do nothing to you, right? Bully's picking on you. Best thing to do is punch him in the face, and then that's over. No more bullying. But Makhmudov, this is a guy that basically has no skill. He's a one-trick pony. He's a Deontay Wilder. He's got pop. He scares people. They're scared before they get in the ring, and he plods over, and he's got extreme power, and he knocks you out. But anybody with any skill is going to destroy this guy. Vianello, although I thought he got robbed in his previous fight, but not robbed. I thought he won the fight. He squeaked it out. But I was impressed with his game plan. He could have knocked Makhmudov out, but he ran out of gas. He was running out of gas towards the end of the rounds, But so my man Hawk says guys like Lomachenko, Usyk, Triple G are the sweet science. Floyd Mayweather is a guy that just really doesn't want to get hit or engage. Well, this is true. This is what I'm saying. Triple G, I don't know if he so much was. Usyk definitely. Lomachenko definitely. Triple G was, you could hit Triple G. I think that the thing with Triple G was that he's a guy I just saw. I don't know if it was legit, but last week I saw that he was being offered money from his excellency to fight TC. That's a dangerous fight for TC too. Because Triple G, although he's older, he's still got power. But look, I just like the fact that Terence Crawford is actually willing to challenge himself. All the great fighters, if you go back in the history, they all challenged themselves. They all tried to do great things. That's what great fighters do. You want to be a great fighter? Do great things. You don't need to just chalk and keep racking up the W's. You need to rack up W's against some outside the box fights. I think this is why Canelo is starting to lose the fanfare. I'll tell you something right now, and it doesn't matter to me what you do, but I'm not going to buy that fight. I'm not buying the Berlanga fight for $90. I'm not. The rest of the card sucks. It's a typical PBC card. PBC is terrible. Please don't. I heard somebody saying the other day that the only legitimate fights that Canelo had recently was the Bivol fight and the Charlo fight. And I laughed my head off. I go, Charlo? Come on. Both of the Charlo brothers are frauds. Most of the PBC fighters are frauds. They're frauds. I mean, please, anybody that thinks that they're real talented fighters, you don't know the sport. I'm sorry. You just don't. And that card is an awful card. Awful. If you're going to pay $90 just to watch Canelo, to me, it's not worth it. I used to buy every fight no matter what. Now I've been, I've smartened up. I can't stand the bullshit. The how much they're going to do this and how much they're going to do that, and they never do it. Do you think I bought the Mayweather Gotti 3 fight? Absolutely not. And I don't even know what happened. I know I read one thing that Floyd got warned, and this is how corrupt in one side is. It's like the left and the going against the right. They want everything their way, right? And this is what happened. I heard that Floyd got warned for hitting behind the head against Gotti, and they replaced the referee. Floyd must have cried and held his breath and stomped his feet, and they replaced the referee for the next round. So I don't know what that was about, and quite frankly, I don't care. And whoever paid for that fight is an idiot because you weren't paying for a real fight. And this is the other thing that I can't stand about him. He fleeces his own people that support him. All his fans, they support him, and he screws them. So, and Hawk saying it was a WWE. It was, at least the WWE. If you're gonna pay for their a big WrestleManias or whatever they do now, at least you're gonna get some entertainment. Somebody's gonna get a chair broke over their head. Something outrageous is gonna happen. Somebody's gonna do something that you weren't expecting. Any Floyd Mayweather fight, nothing happens that you're not expecting. Come on. Anyway, I don't want to keep talking about him. A couple other things real quick. You remember Nick Ball? I told you guys about him. And he's now the WBA World Featherweight Champion. He's a nonstop punching machine out of Liverpool. And I believe he's from Liverpool. He's definitely from the UK. This is a guy that, I think he was either a rugby player or something previously. And he's just a tough, rough and tumble kid. And he is getting better skill set wise, but, he'll be nonstop punching for 12 rounds. I mean, he swarms all over you, and he won a title. And he's fighting again. He's defending his belt on October I don't know if it's the 5th or the 8th, but he's taking on Ronnie Rios, and I believe this is a fight that is just a coming home party. I'm not expecting Rios to beat him at all, but we'll see. He's a fun fighter to watch. I don't know where we'll be able to see it in the U.S., but I'll definitely be looking for it in October. So check that one out. Hawk saying I watched the whole fight and they did a 2-minute rounds. I'm surprised that you paid for that, Hawk, or at least I hope you chiseled it away because I wouldn't pay. I couldn't even watch it. Another fighter I'm getting to the point where I can't watch. And I know people are going to they're probably going to, whoever, obviously our views and numbers aren't what they used to be. and it is what it is. But I think Shakur Stevenson, he talks a lot of shit, Shakur Stevenson, right? And I want to see him fight Tank Davis. That's the fight I want to see. Uh, Instead of getting Tank Davis, we're getting Joe Cordina. Now, Joe Cordina, listen, I'm not gonna knock Cordina because he's a good fighter. Um, but Shakur Stevenson's claiming he's the best, 130, 135 pounder out there, and make no mistake, Joe Cordina's moving up in weight to fight Stevenson. Stevenson's a boring fighter. Yes, he's got boxing skill. I want to see him fight somebody like Tank. And I say that because Tank will come after him. Tank's got hand speed. Tank's got power. Shakur hasn't fought anybody like that yet. But he's talking a lot of smack, saying he's the best one out there. Wanted to fight Lomachenko, wanted to fight this one, wanted to fight that one. I'm the best. And then he takes on a former 130-pound champion in Joe Cordina. It's taking place October 12th in Saudi Arabia. Matchroom now is his promoter. He got away from Top Rank, which I'm glad because, I didn't want to see Shakur end up like TC, but TC is a much more exciting and I believe a more talented fighter skill set wise than Stevenson. But I know people will disagree with me on that. Hey, listen, you don't have to be a boring fighter to equal a quality fighter. That seems to be what's happening today because people were brainwashed by who. You look, boxing is entertainment, okay? Not only do you have to be good, but you have to be entertaining, and you want to rise to the top. You want to make big bucks in this sport. You not only have to have the skill set, you got to be entertaining. Shakur Stevenson has the skill set. There's no question about that, but he's boring. He's boring. I get more excitement out of watching grass grow than watching Stevenson. I've yet to see an exciting fight with him. I'm sorry. But we'll see. Now that he's going to go over in Saudi Arabia, and we'll see what happens. He keeps talking smack that he wants to fight Zepeda. He wants to fight Tank Davis. He wants to fight Lomachenko. And out of all those names he's calling out, we get to see him fight Joe Cordina. So, I mean, please, But anyway, hey, an interesting thing, Larry Merchant. I was never a big huge fan of Larry Merchant. And the reason is probably a knock on myself. Larry Merchant knows the sport of boxing. There's no question about it. But what Larry Merchant tried to do, see now, I think, and I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me, but I think that boxing, right? The boxers, the fighters, and the people involved, I'm gonna get that guy, these and thems and the bumps and that kind of stereotype, right? I think that is boxing. I think that boxing, that's I'm not saying that it's filled with dummies, but what I'm saying is that down to earth, that regular guy, which I've always equated with boxers. They're a regular guy. Maybe a kid that was in trouble. He goes into the gym to let off some steam, and he ends up becoming a boxer, right? Or a kid that likes to fight, or a kid that gets in trouble a lot, learns discipline in the ring, and becomes a fighter. I never thought that, elegance and proper English had a place. And that was Larry Merchant. He would take and, instead of saying, yeah, that guy got a busted up face and he was knocked out, Larry Merchant would say something like, the preponderance fighter, he nailed him with multiple punches, and the claret started dripping from his face. And at the end of the day, he could not continue, and he tried to make it sound a little too eloquent, but the man knew his sport. Now, he just released a couple weeks back, and it was kind of sad because he's getting on in age. I'd still like to see him beat the shit out of Floyd Mayweather. Remember that? Remember when he was like, if I was any younger, I would, And I always liked the fact that, there's somebody else that despises Floyd Mayweather just as much, if not more, than myself. And it's Larry Merchant. But he said this, and it was interesting. He said he was being asked about the heavyweight division and who the best heavyweights were, and this was Larry Merchant said, and I quote, "Okay, I probably won't be around for much longer. So here it is. Here's my list of the best heavyweights of all time." And he also added to that. He said, this list takes into account their technical ability and their achievement. Obviously, the list might look a little different if it was based on them fighting each other, which I think is important to this list. So here's what Larry Merchant had when he said this actually this month, the beginning of this month. His number 10 fighter, I'll go down 10 from 10 to 1. He has Joe Frazier as number 10. He's got George Foreman at number 9. He's got Mike Tyson at number 8. He's got Evander Holyfield at number 7. He's got Jack Dempsey at number 6. He's got Rocky Marciano at number 5. He's got Lennox Lewis at number 4. He's got Joe Louis at number 3. He's got Larry Holmes at number 2. And his best heavyweight of all time, in Larry Merchant's opinion, was Muhammad Ali. So I started thinking about this, and I came up with mine. Okay. Now, I just want to start off by saying, I was wondering where Jack Johnson was on this list, and I was wondering where Sonny Liston was. So before you get mad at me, I'm just going to tell you that my top 10 includes Jack Johnson and Sonny Liston and does not have George Foreman or Joe Frazier on my list. Here's my list. Number 10, Mike Tyson. Number 9, Evander Holyfield. Number 8, Sonny Liston. Number 7, which I couldn't believe that Larry had him up so high, not to discredit him, but I have Lennox Lewis at number 7. I have Larry Holmes at number 6. I have Jack Johnson at number 5. I have Jack Dempsey at number 4. I have Joe Louis at number 3. And for the list purposes, I'm going to give you my number 2 and number 1. But I also want to put a little asterisk next to it, because I believe, in all honesty, my number 1 and number 2 can be flip-flopped at any time, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. But on my initial top 10, my number 2 all-time great heavyweight fighter is Muhammad Ali. And my number 1 all-time great fighter was Rocky Marciano. And the only reason why I list him above Muhammad Ali for this particular exercise was I thought that he took less punishment over his career, even though he did get hit. I thought that he took less punishment over his career, and he had much more power than Muhammad Ali. So when I combine those two attributes, I slightly have him ahead. But again, I have no problem putting Muhammad at number 1 and Rocky at number 2. But I was surprised, and no disrespect to Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes, I gained respect for Larry Holmes after a good friend of mine, God rest his soul, and one of the hardest punchers ever to fight in the heavyweight division, Ernie Shavers. One time I was driving him back, and he used to do anything I asked. He would come if I was doing an event. He didn't care where it was. All I had to do was send him a plane ticket, and Ernie would be there for me. I loved the guy. He was one of the nicest guys. And I went and picked him up myself at the airport. He had a weird flight or whatever, and I picked him up, and we were BSing on the way back to the hotel. And I said, Ernie, I said, people are always saying how great Larry Holmes was, and during his era, I wasn't a big fan of Larry Holmes. I never was, honestly. And I said, did you think he was that great? I mean, am I wrong? And I'll never forget what Ernie Shaver said. He goes to me, he says, Billy, just like that. He goes, Billy, let me tell you something. When I fought Larry Holmes, he says, when I knocked him down, he said, I thought I killed him. He says, I thought I killed him. I started praying to God above, please let this man live. Please let this man live. He said, and I was looking at him laying on that canvas, and he said, all of a sudden I saw a twinkle in his eye, and I saw Larry kind of look up at me, and he said, I knew I was in trouble, Billy C. And he said, Larry Holmes pulled himself up. He says, and we all know what happened after that. Yeah, we do, because Larry Holmes got up off the canvas and knocked out Ernie Shavers. So ever since that day that I had that conversation with Ernie Shavers, I have gained a heck of a lot more respect for Larry Holmes, and I was a little nervous that Ernie was going to nail me, punch me right in the face for even asking him. But anyway, Hawk's asking me how can I leave Usyk off the list and Klitschko, or Klitschko and Usyk. I like I said, Usyk isn't done yet. So we don't know what he's going to do. And versus heavyweights. See, heavyweights, unless they were like a guy like Usyk who came up in weight, or Evander Holyfield, guys that came up in weight, they get on the pound for pound list. Usyk, you look at these fighters that are on the all-time great heavyweight list that I just read. I mean, think of who they fought in their era. Usyk's best fight, his best win so far. Well, I guess you could say, I mean, now we start judging, is Tyson Fury that great? Is, AJ that great? Those are his two big wins, so we'll see. As far as Klitschko's an interesting point, because Klitschko is a fighter that you could argue that for 10 years never lost a round. So yeah, I could see him being a great fighter, but you see, some of the things I always add when I'm doing all-time great lists is the entertainment factor and the excitement factor and what they brought to the sport of boxing. We could sit here and say how great Klitschko was, both of them, as a matter of fact, how dominating they were. But it wasn't like you were chomping at the bit to see a Klitschko fight, and Usyk isn't an exciting fighter. At least, I like Usyk. Don't get me wrong. I love what he brings to the game today, but he's not on an all-time great list because he's still out there. You gotta be dumb. You gotta be done with the sport. Not dumb. You got to be done with the sport before you can be on all-time great lists. You could be on a current top list, but it is what it is. But hey, speaking of heavyweights, I was turned on to this guy. Now, if you guys, there used to be a guy that was involved with this show, and if you show up, I would love all of you to show up at the banquet for my induction into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. I'd love to have you be there because it'll get us a chance to talk one-on-one about boxing and boxing and boxing. But I don't know, for some of you, Hawk may remember, he's been listening for a long time, and maybe Joel. But years ago, I had a guy that was my UK correspondent. His name was Thomas Newman. And he would give us the lowdown on what was going on in the UK. And he's the one that turned me on to Tyson Fury. I watched every single Tyson Fury fight from his third fight on. Okay. And I watched him improve and all these things. Well, I got another one for you to keep an eye on. Now, I told you, Johnny Fisher is one that I like, but here's another one. Here's another fighter out of the UK. All right, he's a 6'6" with an 83-inch reach, 240-pound fighter who's 4-0 right now. 2 of his wins coming by knockout. And, he's fought some experienced fighters. See, in England, they have, they have these guys fight. Like he fought this guy, Vincenzo Azzoloni, in his pro debut in 2023. And the guy's record was 1 win, 17 losses, and a draw. But here's the thing. The guy had 19 pro fights. And he went 4 rounds. He went the distance with Adrian King, who's a monster. In his second pro fight, he fought a guy 9 wins, 23 losses. These are professional opponents, but they know how to fight in the ring. He stopped him. He fought a 3-16 guy in his third fight, Miloslav Pavic, where he won a 4-round decision. And in his last fight, he fought a 3-21 guy, Nathan Jr., who he stopped. So he's been fighting some experienced guys. Yeah, their records they're experienced in losing, but they're experienced in knowing how to hold on, and it's a lot different making that transition from the amateurs to the pros. I don't know much about his name is Adrian King. I don't know much about his amateur career, but he is a fighter I would recommend that you keep an eye on. He's only 19 years old. And he's definitely a heavyweight to keep a watch on. And an 83-inch reach is pretty long. And I saw some video of this kid, and he looks like he looks like a guy to keep an eye on. Hawk saying, I actually think Tyson Fury would beat up most of the guys on Larry Merchant's top 10 list. Listen, Lennox Lewis changed the complexion of the heavyweight division. Lennox Lewis, not that there wasn't big guys back in the early days of boxing, okay? There were 6'4" plus guys, that were weighing in 230 pounds and more. But Lennox Lewis, when Lennox Lewis hit the scene, what we ended up with was a 240-pound, 6'4", toned guy that was in great shape 99% of the time, who had hand speed, power, agility. He changed the heavyweight division in a sense. Now that's what we see. These guys, you look at a 6'3" heavyweight, and you say to yourself, "Oh, he's a small guy. He's a small heavyweight." And when you start comparing, the different generations, yeah, I've admitted that it would be tough for a guy like Jack Dempsey, who I think is one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, to fight a guy like Klitschko or Lennox Lewis or Tyson Fury, because, these are guys that, Rocky Marciano weighed 180 pounds in most of his fights, 187. Mike Tyson, was 211 pounds, in his prime. So, yeah, these guys have gotten way bigger and stronger. And James is adding to it too. He says that Usyk has to be on the list. Listen, we're talking about all-time great fighters. Usyk's not done with his career yet. So he's an active fighter. He's a top 10 fighter now, obviously. Arguably the best heavyweight out there since he beat Tyson Fury. Nobody's disputing that. We're talking about all-time great fighters that are retired. The thing about being an all-time great fighter is once your career is over, then we get to dissect it and we get to look at it. That's why I don't have Floyd Mayweather as a top fighter. I on my all-time great list, okay? My all-time great list, no matter what pound you are, no matter what weight class, I don't have Floyd in the top 5. I don't have him in the top 10. I don't even have him in the top 20. I have Floyd Mayweather on my all-time great list at number 25. Now, he's an all-time great. There's no question about it. But he's not number 1. Sugar Ray Robinson is number 1. Middleweights. How about Harry Greb? He never makes these lists. I'm reading a book. I'm not going to say it right now because I'm going to have the author on here. But there's many fighters that people don't even talk about as all-time greats that are all-time greats. They just don't hear about them because the knowledge of the vast number of great fighters that used to fight. And it goes back to what I was just saying earlier in the show about me the other night watching all of these Joe Louis clips. And I came to the conclusion that Joe Louis definitely possessed skill. I'm not knocking his skill set, but today's fighters have more skill. They've learned from the fighters of yesteryear, but the fighters of yesteryear had more heart and they were willing to engage. Something that fighters today, it's rare that they want to engage. And when they do, sometimes the guys that are engaging, excuse me, are brawlers. The skilled guys don't want to engage. And that's what bothers me, because when you watch a skilled fighter that's fighting another skilled fighter and they're engaging, well, now you have a fight that you're going to remember, and it doesn't necessarily have to go to distance. Anyway, one last thing, I'll let him get his last thing. James says, I understand and respect all of that, but I personally feel like Usyk, Inoue, and Crawford are all-time greats, and I don't need them to retire to feel that way. Hey, listen, all three of them are on pound for pound on my pound for pound list, but you got to wait for the whole career to be over. And listen, go through the list of that all-time great list and see who they fought. Foreman and Joe Frazier missed my top 10 all-time great heavyweight list, but look at the guys they fought. Even the guys that would lose would be champions today. People used to say Joe Louis had a bum in a month club. Guys like Abe Simon and even Tony Two-Ton Galento, if they would have fought today, they'd have a belt because there's so many belts and stuff. No, look, James, I respect your opinion. Same thing with Hawk. Hawk knows how I am. But the truth of the matter is let's wait. I think it would be more rewarding for a guy like Usyk to retire and then all of a sudden get on those all-time great lists and surpass some of these names. But you can't be on an all-time great list until you're done. That's just my opinion. And Hawk is saying he thinks Usyk should retire today before they rob him. He's got nothing left to prove. That wouldn't be that wouldn't be a bad idea. But I don't, I think his chances of beating Tyson Fury again might be slim. But I agree with you there. I think if he does beat Tyson Fury again, or if Tyson Fury somehow backs out of this fight in December, that maybe he goes down to cruiserweight. But then again, I agree 100% with both James and Hawk that he doesn't have anything left to prove. Anyway, listen, I appreciate you guys joining me today. We will be doing a show next week, so make sure you spread it around and show up here. And until then, make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.